Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In this episode we're looking at how we built this headliner shelf up here. It's actually been in for quite a long time now, but we haven't shown you it yet, because this was kind of our go-to project from the beginning if we were waiting for deliveries or we had a bit of time on our hands where we couldn't really get into another project.
And so therefore we filmed it over several weeks, maybe even several months, which means the footage for it is a little bit choppy. We were thinking about combining it with the video to build our wall, so we're going to have a partition wall right down here, but actually that's already taken quite a while. We're going to need to split it into several videos just on its own. So we decided to give good old headliner shelf its own dedicated video, as it so rightly deserves.
Whilst we're still waiting on the paint to be delivered to treat the floor with, which is hopefully coming today, we're going to look at the headliner shelf. So we're going to refit that, and we're going to try and put a shelf above the cab area, and so we're going to try and work out where that goes while we're waiting. For the shelf we're going to put in, we're thinking of kind of having it as low as possible. So I've just slotted this angle bracket down behind here, this mounting point on the sun visor. So I've put that back on just so I can see where it comes. So a lot of people have the shelf coming to kind of here, so you keep this cubby hole, but we're going to probably have ours as low as we can and kind of resting on this bracket, because we don't think we're going to use this kind of space here, and we'd rather have it for extra storage space in the back. So I've just got the inclinometer to read 0, so then we'll just double check that if we take that off, it's got a magnet on the bottom, which is quite handy. If we pop that onto the floor of the van, it's 0.25 now. So we're less than 1/4 of a degree out. So I'm probably fairly happy to take that as a good result. We've taken the headliner out of the van, brought it inside so we can scribe our shelf. So our shelf is going to run kind of along where the bottom of this duct tape is. So I've got myself just a compass with a pencil in it. And so when we're scribing, got to make sure the height's right. So I'll just raise that up a bit to get the height right, and then you just run it along. And if you start with the compass facing that way, it's got to stay that way all the way along. If you turn it like that, your scribe will go wrong. So I've just cut out this shape after scribing it. So then if we fit that where it's going to fit on our shelf, that fits quite well. So I'm quite happy with that. And then we'll do the same for all the other corners, calculate some distances, stitch it all together into one proper size template before we use it to cut out our plywood. So after a lot of cutting and scribing and trial and error, we've got one final template for the shelf on one single piece of cardboard, which should make it a lot easier to fit. So now we just need to insulate behind the headliner shelf and get on with it. So with this insulation we've got, which is recycled plastic bottles, you want to kind of not squish it in too much, because the air pockets in there actually help give it the thermal properties that we're looking for. So we're trying not to shove too much in the gaps, leave it nice and inflated, and don't like squish it all the way down. And just working the way along, filling all these big voids. Now for the difficult bit, putting the headliner back on by myself. I'm going in from the front.
after a bit of thought, we realized the reason why our template doesn't fit is because when we took that headliner piece out to scribe it, the back edges splay out slightly. So when you put it back in again and push those edges into their correct position, it means that the front of our template fits great, but the back is far too wide. In order to fix this, we couldn't just cut a chunk out of the middle because then our front would end up too narrow. So what we did instead is we cut a triangle out to try and preserve that front section as much as possible while also narrowing the back.
So these are the angle brackets we've got to hold the shelf up. They've got 3 holes here, but we need one up here, which I've marked over here for the 2 furthest to the kind of living area. So we'll drill a hole in those. We'll probably spray paint them because I don't think this kind of metallic silver will look that nice in the van. It will be a bit of a feature, so we'll probably spray paint it a different colour. This is dry fit 1294. And so as you can see, we've still got a tiny gap now, but it's much improved from where it was. So that is what our shelf is going to look like.
As you saw earlier, it can be quite a faff to refit this headliner piece, but after a bit of practice, you do get the hang of it.
Thanks a lot for watching. As you could see, and you probably saw in the intro, this is the finished product here of the shelf. It's quite sturdy, but it's a bit unsupported at the back. But as Aisha mentioned earlier, we're going to build this partition wall here, which will come up to here, so it will be nice and supported at the back. So stay tuned for that, probably next week.
And once again, sorry for the slightly odd footage in this video. As we said at the beginning, this was filmed over several weeks, so it's all a bit choppy, and it was right at the beginning when we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. So apologies for that. But if you enjoyed it anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next Thursday for another video.